Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another Versus Night. Tonight, I will be comparing Count Yorga from 1970 versus Grave of the Vampire from 1972. So, let's get started on this one with the leads. Count Yorga from 1970 stars Robert Quarry and Roger Perry. Grave of the Vampire from 1972 stars William Smith and Michael Patanke. Now, in Count Yorga, Robert Quarry, in certain points, is excellent as the Count Yorga character. He really does have a really suave and cool, debonair air about him for a really seductive vampire. Unfortunately, the film kind of lets him down at certain points and makes him just go wide-eyed and run at people with his teeth in his mouth, and it just doesn't make him as a threat as he should be, because he should be this, smart, sophisticated vampire instead of this brute that's just running at people like he does throughout this film, unfortunately. And there's other parts, like a part where he attacks one of the characters and his girlfriend by their car, and he just basically knocks him out and then attacks her. No seductive hypnosis on her or anything like that, where he should. I mean, he's a vampire and he's seductive. So that was kind of disappointing that it's all over the place with his character. While Roger Perry is very, very good as the doctor that is after Count Yorga. He's almost like a very young Van Helsing to Count Yorga in this film. And my only qualm about his performance is that he is far too quick to accept that Yorga is a vampire and is, just ready to go after him. It's far too quick and easy for him to be doing that. Meanwhile, on the other side of the spectrum, on Grave of the Vampire, you have William Smith, who gives an excellent performance as this man who is born through a rape of a woman from a vampire who wants to go after his father, this vampire, for revenge. Very great performance here by William Smith. He makes the character very cool. He makes him a very interesting character. And I've always liked William Smith as an actor. He's just really cool. So it was great seeing him in this. But he does not make it his intro just because his character isn't, they detail his birth and everything. So they have to show the early parts of his life. So he doesn't make his intro till about midway into the film. But when he does, he really stands out. Speaking of the vampire, though, Michael Patanke, kind of like Robert Quarry, I mean, he has all the abilities to play a really seductive and cool vampire. Unfortunately, this film does drop the ball with him as well, because most of the time he is portraying him as almost like a zombie, just walking after somebody, attacking them viciously, killing them, and in the case of William Smith's character's mother, raping her and causing him to be born. That's unfortunate, because later parts in the film where he is posing as this doctor, he is great in here, and he's very seductive, but they don't maintain that. At certain points, he goes into like almost serial killer mode where he'll grab someone and just, bash their face in or something with a weapon or something to, drink their blood. So he's not even really using his teeth half the time as a vampire, or he'll cut their throat with a butcher knife. I mean, it's very inconsistent as a vampire character, unfortunately. So, but judging from, these inconsistent vampires versus the good guys with Roger Perry versus William Smith, I'm going to have to go with Grave of the Vampire with this one. Even though, Michael Patonke's vampire is not the best. I loved William Smith's performance. And I think he did a better performance than what Roger Perry did. All right, so let's move on to the supporting. Supporting cast of Count Yorga, Vampire, consists of Michael Murphy, Michael McCready, Donna Anderson, Judy Lang, and Edward Walsh. The supporting cast on Grave of the Vampire consists of Lynn Peters, Diane Holden, Eric Mason, Kitty Volaker, and Carmen Argenzino. Now, I'm not going to go over this one too much just because, the supporting cast on Count Yorga has Michael Murphy, who is, at this time, this is an early role for him, but he is really, really good in his role. Very likable, and you can see how he was going to be a future bigger actor. I wouldn't say he was ever really a big star, but you could see him going on to the bigger films that he did go on to. Michael McCready is not really known as a actor per se, but he was okay in this. Donna Anderson and Judy Lang as the characters that are Robert Quarry's vampires, objects of lust, I guess, in here, are both pretty good. Like I said, the Judy Lang scene where she's just attacked instead of, seduced and everything. Now, later on, they do have a scene where she does get seduced after she's already been attacked and bit. But it's, now the Donna Anderson's character gets a much better treatment because she's at this seance thing that Robert Quarry's Count Yorga is doing, and she gets really upset, and he uses this hypnosis technique to calm her down, and then he uses his abilities to, get into her head and, maintain a semblance of control over her. So that was really good for her. So, and the only other actor of note in Count Yorga is Edward Walsh, who plays the manservant to Robert Quarry's Count Yorga. And he pretty much should have been what Yorga ends up being throughout this, where he's just lunging at people and attacking them. That should have been him, the manservant. They should have kept Quarry as just seducing people, and trying to get, he could get physical if the person tries to attack him and take him out with a stake. That would be nice, but he's lunging at people consistently throughout the movie, and that'll just lead to you getting killed, as does happen in that film. Supporting on Grave of the Vampire, there is nobody of actual note in this one. They're not bad performances by any stretch of the imagination, but probably the best performance in here was the surprise of Carmen Argenzano as in an early role for him, much like Michael Murphy. They both had this stellar career where they're playing really good supporting actor in films and stuff, and it was a surprise to see him in there, and he did a really good job in this film. But I don't think it's enough to put this one over. So I'm going to give this one to Count Yorga, Vampire. All right, so let's move on to story and see if we can get a different outcome on this one. The story for Count Yorga Vampire follows a vampire from Hungary as he arrives in America and causes much confusion and bloodshed for two sets of couples and their doctor friend. The story for Grave of the Vampire from 1972 consists of a serial rapist and murderer rises from his grave to reveal that he is a vampire, and upon killing a man and raping his girlfriend, causes the woman to become pregnant, and years later, the son searches for his vampire father in order to destroy him. Now, take away the fact that the serial rapist and murderer vampire in Grave of the Vampire, and you might have a really, really great story here. Whereas Count Yorga Vampire, having Robert Quarry's Count Yorga coming from Hungary, I mean, you would think he would be talking with a really thick accent. In fact, there's one line in there where Roger Perry, talks to him, and he says he's just moved here from Hungary, and Roger Perry's character ends up saying, "Your American accent is really good," So that was pretty funny. Roger Perry is actually written in a lot of scenes as being pretty funny. I mean, they write him with some really good lines in here.
Did it ever occur to you that we may be right, you dumb ass?
And I really like Grave of the Vampires, the son coming back to get revenge on his father and destroy him once and for all. That is very intriguing and interesting. I don't think it's as well executed as it could have been. So I think I'm going to give the story to Count Yorga Vampire on this one. All right, so let's move on to direction and see if we can get a clear-cut winner on this. Count Yorga Vampire is directed by Bob Keljan, and Grave of the Vampire is directed by John Hayes. Now, Count Yorga Vampire has a very cheap direction quality. Bob Keljan doesn't always do the best angles. He tries to do this moody atmosphere throughout it, which sometimes it hits, sometimes it misses. Where he fails is any kind of suspense or intense action in here because, like I said, Robert Quarry's vampire basically just lunges at people and with fangs in his mouth and everything. And it's just completely uninspired as a vampire. And it's a shame because he directs him in some of these scenes where Yorga and the doctor, played by Roger Perry, are, doing this, test of wills thing. And those scenes are well directed, really, really good. Where the film is let down is in his direction near the end of the film for the finale. The finale is pretty lackluster, unfortunately, and Count Yorga is taken out pretty quickly. near the end of the film, which is a disappointment. Whereas John Hayes, as the director on Grave of the Vampire, I do not like the opening sequences, early sequences in here, where there's so much about the serial rapist, murderer, vampire thing, because it's just so off from what you expect from a vampire film. And he directs very similar to the way Bob Keljan does in Count Yorga. It's very cheap style visually, and but once you get to that point where William Smith's character comes in, the film starts to pick up quite a bit, and John Hayes, I think, starts to get a better grip on how to use Michael Pataki as a vampire in there. Although he still does stupid moments where, like, he ends up having Michael Pataki. A girl is submitting to him in a library, and you're thinking he's using mind control abilities on her, but no, she's just being stupid and just messing with him, and then he ends up killing her. I mean, it's a shitty moment. And the same thing goes with a scene later on with Diane Holden's character, as she wants to be a vampire, and she figures out that Michael Pataki is a vampire, and she is submitting herself to him, wanting him to bite her and make her his bride, and then he just cuts her throat and kills her. And it's, it's just, why would you do that? However, the final moments of Grave of the Vampire are excellent. The final fight between William Smith and Michael Pataki is incredible. And there's this moment before that fight even happens where Michael Pataki massacres 4 characters in this room. He locks the door on them, and one of them is played by Carmen Argenzano. And that sequence is amazing. I mean, he kills one guy and then proceeds to go after Carmen's character. Carmen shoots him, and it's so cool, the visual style that John Hayes does in there for that sequence. And even though I don't like the serial rapist and murderer elements of Michael Pataki as a vampire, some of the intense moments with him, he does make for an imposing vampire. In one moment early in the film, he picks up a man, lifts him up, and throws him onto a tombstone, breaking his back, which was pretty brutal. So I'm going to give this one to Grave of the Vampire. So, if you're keeping track of the numbers, we have come to a tie on this one. Both of these films are very similar, so it was perfect that I was comparing them. I think if I was going to pick one that I actually, even though, they are equal as far as the score, if I was going to pick one that I would actually watch again multiple times over, it would probably be Count Yorga. Unfortunately, the opening moments with the rapist stuff is unpleasant to watch. Now, if I just skip forward and watch the moments when William Smith's character comes in, then I could sit and watch it forever. But what do you guys think of these two films? Do you agree with my assessment on this one? Do you disagree? Let me know in those comments down below. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, click that join button and become a Dark Knight fan. As a Dark Knight Fan Plus member, you have access to an area on the channel right now where you can request a movie, TV series, or ranking video of your choosing. And when I do that video, it will go up on the Plus area for all Plus members to view before it becomes live as a video for everyone else. So if you want to get interactive, now is your chance.
Well, that's the end of another Versus Night. If you missed last week's Versus Night, check out the link up in here. Or if you've missed any of the other Versus Nights, check out our playlist and see anything that you have missed.